first of all, it's a terrible, terrible thing. It's for someone to go in there and even think of doing something like this and then doing it. What's the laws in Florida in a bar about guns?
You can't have it. Actually, there's a group called the Pink Pistols, which is an LGBTQ gun rights group. And they issued a statement, and of course, I'm not reading the whole statement. So they talked about how horrible the tragedy is, but they said that this is exactly the kind of heinous act that justifies our existence. At such a time of tragedy, let us not reach for the low-hanging fruit of blaming the killer's guns. Let's stay focused on the fact that someone hated gay people so much that they were ready to kill or injure so many. A human being did this. The human being's tools are unimportant when compared to the bleakness of that person's soul. They actually talk about this is another statement from them, some bars and other establishments that serve alcohol are difficult to protect because many states forbid the carrying of weapons where alcohol is served. But that is just the place that one might have a designated driver who stays sober. You might also have a designated carrier with a concealed carry permit who goes armed and does not drink.
I'm sticking with my earlier position. Guns and drunk people don't mix very well.
Is it illegal?
Where?
Well, is murder illegal, Franklin? We need stricter murder control laws because that would obviously fix it under your rationale.
Based upon my 30 years of dealing with people in the criminal justice system, huge numbers of the violent crimes that I've encountered involve people who were under the influence of either alcohol or drugs at the time they committed their acts. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Franklin, I'll go further. When I worked in law enforcement, almost everything we did was involved with alcohol and drugs.
Were they legal carriers, most of those people?
We don't let people, as you pointed out a moment ago, we don't let people drive their car drunk. I don't know why we think their judgment would be better with a handgun.
Let me ask you a question. You're right, and that's exactly what this group, the Pink Pistols, is talking about. Do we say anybody drinking can't drive a car at all?
No, but we also don't mandate by law that they have a designated driver.
Their point was we encourage one person to obey the law and protect the group as a
designated driver.
They're saying why not have a designated carrier?
Yeah. Well,
what's your problem with that?
You know what? It may be getting to that point.
Well, it is to that point.
Here's my first problem with it, John. Unlike cars, who we actually regulate and require that people develop a sense of a certain amount of competency before we let them do that, we don't require any such thing for firearms. So any yahoo can be the designated shooter in that circumstance. Well, and the pro-firearm groups are opposed to any kind of regulation that requires competence and training.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Why would you even take that?
Well, I'll give you an exact reason why. Because I hate to say this, we're lucky all he did was go in and shoot a bunch of people, because the competency people that you would put in charge of that program gave him Department of Homeland Security clearance, which would have allowed him access to our nuclear sites. Well, now, this is a guy, wait a minute, you want a system of bureaucrats to regulate the rest of us. This guy was investigated 3 times by the FBI. Okay. He had traveled to Syria twice. Okay. His co-workers had said he was a danger. His ex-wife said he was a danger, and they gave him clearance that gave him access to our nuclear facilities.
And his boss was
And these are the people you want to put in charge of my guns? No, thank you.
Okay, John, well, let's just use your goofy analogy and keep going with it.
He had access to nuclear sites, Franklin. No, wait a minute. That's goofy. Access to nuclear sites for a terrorist.
John, let's go forward with it. Let me ask you this question, and I challenge you to tell me if what I say is wrong.
Okay.
Tell me how highway fatalities have gone in the last 35 years. Have they gone up or have they fallen dramatically?
Well, I don't know, Franklin.
You don't know?
No, I don't know.
You don't know if highway fatalities are higher or lower than they were 35 years ago.
I hate to break this to you, but the reason I tend to be pretty strong when I state something is because I make sure I know. So I'm giving you an honest answer.
Thank you for confessing ignorance on this point.
Let me tell you. Well, I wish all you gun control people would confess ignorance.
Let me tell you this. Highway fatalities have fallen more than 50% in the last 30 years.
Wow.
Why? You know why?
Why?
Because of all kinds of government regulations.
So you think
so
that works?
Guess what? Sometimes somebody falls through the cracks. That's true, and that's fine to hold people
Nuclear
accountable to.
access, Department of Homeland Security is a falling through the crack. And by the way, Franklin, I assume what you're saying is that all of these bureaucratic laws and all have worked. Is that what you're saying?
No, I suggest to you, John, that those bureaucratic laws involving our cars have had a dramatically
Well, I'm glad
positive
you said that, 'cause
experience.
guess what? Murder rates have fallen dramatically over the last 20 years. So obviously,
I
by
guess
your,
the
by your
government
no,
wasn't
but
involved in
you're
that.
right, but here's the point: we don't need any more because they're
gov-
going down.
The government was involved
So
in it.
I'm glad
Actually,
you're with
John,
me that
the
we
problem-
don't
the
need
pro-
any more
Actually,
regulation.
what the statistics show, John,
They're going down.
what the statistics
in
show,
Chattanooga.
can I finish my statement?
Well, a Democratic-led city.
What
Andy
let's
Burke
finish-
has nothing to
let's
do
finish
with
the
the
statement,
shootings
though,
in
John.
Chattanooga.
Well, if he had
In
a little
fact,
bit more
John,
time
in-
away from his mistresses
in
and more
fact,
time
John-
with the police department, maybe it'd be better.
In fact, John, single murder rates have fallen dramatically. That is a true statement. Mass shootings, on the other hand, have skyrocketed.
Actually, they haven't. I'll bring
That's
you the
wrong.
numbers.
Since
I'll bring you the
Obama
numbers
came into
tomorrow.
office,
That is
since
wrong.
Obama
Bring you the
came into
numbers.
office,
No, no,
Since
no.
Obama
Oh,
came
no,
in
my
office.
friend.
I'll bring you the numbers
Over the
next
last
week.
25
That's
years,
not true.
over the last
That's not true.
25 years, the United States has 5% of the population of the industrialized world, and we have 47% of the mass shootings.
Yes, but the key
facts
word there
are-
is shooting, Franklin, not mass murders. By the
I
way,
didn't say mass murders.
well, that's the point.
Shootings are
But you're-
shootings.
No,
Keeping the
you're
record.
no,
Just
you're
keeping
missing
the
the point. All over the world, in China, there's been all kinds of mass murders. Guess what? They use knives and swords there, Franklin. The human soul is the problem here, not the mechanism. By the way, Tom Brokaw went on
Then
the
by
news.
God, we should all be able to carry hand grenades if we want to,
Tom
right? Because
Tom
it's only the
Brokaw
soul that
went on the news and said we should outright ban the AR-14. Do you agree?
What I think, John, is there is a reason that so many of these mass shootings involved individuals carrying that gun or a clone of that gun. There is a
You mean
reason
like the
that
shooter down in Florida.
yes.
All right,
that's one.
let me just interrupt you.
No,
for
let
a
me
second.
finish.
No,
No,
okay, go
because
ahead,
you've made
finish.
this point about
All right,
40
all right,
times
all right.
before.
So you'd
Okay?
support a ban on the AR-14?
No, it's not no. Actually, what I would support is a significant ban on expanded magazines.
All right.
That's what I would
All
support.
right, can I interrupt you now? First off, there's no such thing as the AR-14.
AR-15.
Tom Brokaw doesn't know what he's talking about, and obviously
Okay, John.
you don't put enough thought into it to keep up with that. Secondly, the AR-15, which is what I'm assuming Tom Brokaw meant,
You're talking about a civilian copy of a weapon that was designed for military
it's the
use.
most popular sold
Yes,
rifle in
John.
the country.
And you know
It is
what?
used for
You know,
all
when
kinds
it-
of hunting purposes. It's the major gun used in most shooting competitions. By the way, Franklin, you think it was too deadly in that nightclub?
Too deadly?
Yeah.
What does that mean, John?
Well, I don't know because it wasn't
Can
in that
you have
nightclub.
less
It
deadly
wasn't
and more
in
deadly?
that nightclub. It wasn't an AR-15. He didn't use an AR-15. So why are we talking? Why is the New York Times
John,
and the Washington
there-
Post
John,
talking about
wait a
the
minute,
AR-15?
Wait a minute, John. Wait a minute.
Tell me
First
why
of
they're
all-
talking
oh,
about
be
a gun that
quiet.
wasn't used
No.
in the crime.
Let's all leave and let John talk to himself.
Well, maybe you ought
Let's
to
put a
learn
mirror
to
in
say,
front of
I
you.
don't know what I'm talking about every now and then.
Here's what I know, John. There's about 18 different gun manufacturers who manufacture clones
It's not
or
a clone,
knockoffs
Franklin. The
of
gun
that
you-
of
Right,
that style
right.
of gun.
You're right. Let me interrupt you again. There was no clone used. Almost no part on the gun he used is interchangeable with any AR platform gun. So my point is, Franklin,
John-
if all these gun control people are so sincere, why are we even talking about AR-15s when that wasn't the gun he used?
John, can I ask you a question real quick? No matter what kind of gun it was, do you think that gentleman should have had a right to buy the gun? He was on watches, no-fly list. Should we allow
One,
that
he
in?
wasn't. You're right, but he wasn't. That's the problem,
But
Ron.
you're right. He should have been. But
Well, then what
Two
good will
separate
it do?
questions.
but
Two
if he
separate questions.
if he had been on a no-fly list,
No, not the no-fly list as it's currently used.
Okay.
Here's the reason. Steve Hayes, for example, writer for National Review, is on the no-fly list. Senator Ted Kennedy was on the no-fly list.
Well,
and by the way,
guess-
tell me what constitutional protections are regarding that no-fly list.
well,
None.
you would hope that.
None. There's none. There's no review. There's no judicial review for that list.
Well, we should have some. You
Well,
know, if you're
that's
on
my
that list,
point.
you should be able to go to court, hire Franklin, and
Put
go to
that
court.
list- these are the same people, Ron, that gave this guy security clearance for our nuclear facilities. Why would I trust them with my constitutional rights?
You know when
How can they miss
Not-
the
not-
boat on this guy?
yeah, 9/11.
Do you know what his father is?
Yes, I
His
do.
father is an Afghan politician who openly
Should he been able to
advocates and
buy a
supports
gun
the
in America?
Taliban.
Should he been able to buy a gun
He
in
shouldn't
America?
have been in the country.
Answer
He was
his
bo- he's
question.
born in
Should
New
he
York.
have been able to go into a store and buy a gun?
No, he shouldn't, but that's
Okay.
the point.
That is
You
the
have,
point.
no, he passed
No,
FBI
no,
background
no,
checks, Franklin.
that's a separate
no,
issue.
No, it's not a separate issue. How in the world can you say
No,
it's a separate issue?
here's your problem, John.
Listen-
Now, this is the way you look at things. The government screws this one up.
He
Consequently,
screwed
hold
everyone
on.
up.
No, hold on. The government screwed this up, and because of that, we shouldn't have a rule that would have caught 15,000 other people.
We do have a rule. That's your point. That's my point.
If
There
we had-
is a rule.
If we had Trump, we
If
wouldn't have
we
this
had
guy.
enforced the current laws accurately and correctly, he wouldn't have been able to buy it.
That's not true.
That is true. He was under FBI investigation.
There is no law that says that, John.
Franklin,
What law is
all right,
that?
let me stop
There
you
is-
for
no,
a
you
second.
made that up.
No, just stop for a
There
second.
is no law.
So you and Ron are advocating that the no-fly list should be used.
No,
Now,
John. What I'm telling
No,
you
we-
is this.
John, I
And,
asked you a
it's
question.
It's really creepily on point. 2 weeks ago, the president at a town hall
this is the
answered
president who didn't enforce
answered the
law.
no, you're wrong. Answered this question from an NRA supporter who asked this very thing, and the president said, "Here's the problem. Just today, I met with the FBI, and we reviewed people who are American citizens who are known ISIS sympathizers, and I can't stop them from buying a gun. I don't want to take lawful people's guns away from them, but I want you to tell me what's wrong with me being able to stop that person
All right,
from
let
getting
me
a gun."
ask you a question. He has advocated, and you all have advocated the no-fly list.
It's
That's
just a
not
que-
even.
I didn't
I didn't
advocate.
say
I,
that.
I just asked you a
I
question.
just said it's crazy
Why-
that we can keep people off a plane, but we can't keep
All
them
right,
out
let
of a
me
gun
stop
store.
you. This is Jed, however you say his first name, Jed Johnson, the Homeland Security Director. This guy worked for G4S, who is contracted by the Department of Homeland Security to protect federal buildings, including nuclear facilities. Now, he was investigated 3 times by the FBI. Not once did the FBI interrupt his security clearance. So the guy travels to Saudi Arabia twice. He's in direct contact with the only American who blew himself up as a suicide bomber in Afghanistan. He is in direct connection with a cleric who advocates these kinds of attacks, and not once did our own government, the president's administration, suspend his clearance facility.
What did the FBI say?
Nothing. They won't answer the question.
Well,
Actually,
And by the way-
actually, his employer issued a statement yesterday that said he did not have a U.S. security clearance.
He
and
worked
did not,
for.
and did, hold on, and did not work on any federal contracts or have access to any.
They are
particular
a.
federal.
You're
Yes,
right.
they
At the
are a
moment he
company
did.
that
You're
does
right.
that.
At the
But
moment he
they-
didn't. That is a
So-
lawyerly answer.
It's not lawyerly.
At the
You've
moment,
been sitting here telling everybody
I'm telling
he
you,
had access to American
he
nuclear
could have through
facilities,
his
and
company.
that's not true.
Franklin, here's the point. He had.
Just say the truth.
No, it is the truth. He worked for a company that had access to nuclear facilities that routinely moved their people wherever they wanted. He had no flags on his record. So had that company at any point said, "Hey, I believe we're going to transfer him over to this nuclear facility," he would have gone. That's the point.
Franklin,
should he be able to buy a gun?
He shouldn't have been in the country.
Let me ask another question.
But he can buy a gun.
Not if he wasn't legally in the country. You can't buy a gun unless you're a U.S.
You can go to
citizen.
any pawn shop in
Unless
town
you're a
and buy
US
one.
citizen. No, you can't.
Oh,
Ron.
yes, you
You
can.
absolutely cannot.
According
And
to
I
him-
and I
hold
tell
on.
you what,
Not
any
without a
pawn shop
background
that
check.
you can say does that, I ask you to report them because they will be in
Let me
federal
tell you-
prison by the end of the year.
Had
You
he-
know what you do when you walk into a pawn shop or to a gun store? All you have to do is fill out a one yellow sheet that's put in a box that's never seen
That is
again.
not true, Ron. Absolutely.
My family
you are
ran-
so wrong.
My family ran pawn shops.
Ron-
that
Ron-
is
well, they
true.
may have
Family
ran
ran
it 40
pawn shops
years
in the
ago, but that's
60s.
not today.
In the 60s is when your family ran.
When
pawn
you
shops.
go in, you will pay
Okay.
$10
It's a
and
new
they will
world now.
transmit all of your information directly to the FBI. And the FBI will do a complete background check on you, and they will not hand you that
Then-
gun
then
until
how-
you are cleared.
How did the guy in Florida buy
He
that?
went through the background checks.
because
That's the
he
point.
was legal for him to buy it.
No,
Right,
but
because
that's
this
the
is
point.
an incompetent
No, it's
law.
not. The law does not permit the denial of that purchase
John,
for that reason.
John, let me ask
That's
you. Let me ask you a
point.
simple question. If we
And
could,
the NRA opposes the
All right,
law.
wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's go through this one step at a
Okay.
time. Nobody legally thought they could stop this guy because they thought they might get fired.
No,
His
because
own-
there's no
his-
law
no,
that
his own-
allows
no,
it.
he's somebody's
Fire
company.
him because of the law.
His company was afraid of political correctness, and
His-
that's why they didn't
Everybody
react
was
to.
afraid of this guy.
He had
was
a
nut.
he had a coworker, Franklin, that was a
Yes,
retired police
yes,
officer
I know,
who quit
I know.
his job
I know.
because he was afraid of the guy.
And the company says they didn't put him on
The
any.
system screwed up because of the
system
bureaucracy
failed,
that was
Franklin.
The
there.
bureaucracy.
I
that's a
agree- I
private
agree that-
employer.
John, let me ask you a question.
No.
If we could come up with a law that said that all of us agreed is that
If
you
Trump was our president, we wouldn't even have this guy.
he's got to get Congress to pass
No,
laws.
he doesn't. Here's a problem for Franklin's argument. The president, without Congress, decided that anybody on Social Security who has had a conservator appointed, now he didn't say for mental reasons he just said a conservator is now going to not be allowed to buy a gun. So the president, with the stroke of his pen, could stop my senior citizen relatives from having a gun because they can't manage their money. But he couldn't stop a guy who's been investigated 3 times by the FBI from getting
well,
a gun.
I agree with that.
Well, the
That's
point
crazy.
there then is the
All right.
problem is not the laws on the book. The problem is the enforcement of the laws on the book.
Well, we
got
have
plenty of
no
laws.
laws on gun control.
we have all kinds.
Oh, no.
The shooters in Aurora, Colorado, violated 24 different federal gun laws.
Okay, let me ask you a
Would
question.
25 have made a difference, Ron?
Maybe.
No.
Oh, okay.
Hey, I
You don't
agree.
know.
John, the system's messed up. Let's talk about what we do to fix it.
No, the very people who say the system's messed up oppose any efforts at modifying or
That's
fixing
not
the
true.
system.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not
but
The NRA,
true.
the NRA
No,
has
it's not.
pushed for fixing the mental health problems for over 25 years. And it's actually the gun control people that have resisted multiple attempts to fix that because it's all a red herring for them to get gun bans in place. That's all this is about.
No, you think every effort to talk
Then
about
why are
this
we
issue
talking
is
about
an
the
attempt to have a-
AR-15? Why is the New York Times,
Because
the
these
Washington
is-
Post, why are all these
Tell
Democrat
us exactly
politicians?
what the weapon was he used on.
It was a Sig Sauer. It has
Okay.
nothing to
What's
do.
the design of that?
It's nothing like the AR. I'll show
It's
you.
nothing like it.
It's not a single part is interchangeable
I-
on that
it-
It's a
gun.
question of whether it's interchangeable.
That means it, frankly,
It's
obviously
assault.
you don't understand guns.
Does
If
it
they're
have- does it have
similar,
Does it have the pistol grip on it?
actually,
You can't-
I
you
don't
can
know.
get it
you
with.
can get it with or
Okay.
without a
You
pistol
can get
grip.
yes.
Does
What's
it
the
does,
pistol
does,
grip
does
got
it
to do with it?
accommodate large expanded magazines?
Yeah, of course.
Franklin,
No, answer that question,
I
John.
won't-
any semi-automatic rifle will
Yes.
accommodate a large magazine. Anyone.
I've got
My
a-
deer rifle from 1960 will accommodate a large magazine.
I've got a Glock pistol that I can buy a 90-round clip for, and that's not for self-defense. That's for murder.
That's
I mean, if
That's
you have
the
a
exact
90-round
point
clip
here.
on your pistol,
that is the point.
I don't have a 90-round
We don't
clip.
have to regulate the gun, but we ought to accept the concept that no hunter worth a damn needs 90 shots
All right, let me
to
ask
hit
you
a
a question.
deer.
What is the technology of a magazine?
What
is
is
it?
the technology?
What's the technology
It's
to make a magazine?
spring-fed, generally.
It's sheet metal and a spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think
Well, gosh,
that
John,
you're going to regulate sheet metal and a spring
gosh,
to
John,
criminals?
if somebody can manufacture it on their own, I guess we can.
Do you want me to show you the guns that they've actually built in our prisons? I'll bring you photos of those. They built paper mache guns that actually function and shoot in our prisons. By the way, what are the gun laws in Denmark? Brussels.
Tell me.
They're complete restrictions, just like you people want.
Okay.
Did that stop the massacre in Denmark? Did that stop? France has complete restrictions. Did that stop the fully automatic attack on the?
France does not have.
Actually, the private citizens are not allowed to buy those kind of rifles, and they certainly aren't allowed to buy fully automatic, which is what those people used. By the way,
Oh, by the way, you've said this earlier. I had to check this out. The Ted Kennedy on the no-fly list story is a complete myth.
Okay, well, Steve Hayes is not.
It's a complete myth.
Steve Hayes is
Well,
not. Journalist.
John, let me ask. I want you to answer this question: If we,
Mm-hmm.
if us in this room could come to a consensus, which I don't know if we ever could or not, but people who are criminals, people who are on no-fly list, and we can make that a clean
Look,
list.
I won't
Should they?
submit to the no-fly list on any way because that list is not
Hey,
constitutionally
Okay.
regulated.
Some kind of constitutional regulated list that the FBI is investigating and they think you're a terrorist. Should they be able to go to a gun
No,
store?
they shouldn't.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Why can't we pass
The,
that?
the FBI investigated this guy 3 times, Ron, and they never revoked his security clearance. His father openly advocates support of the Taliban.
Do you
He
know
still
why?
could have bought a rifle,
Ron,
though.
Ron, do you know why they didn't revoke it?
I have no idea, sir.
Orders from headquarters. Mr. Obama wants everybody to be like. Right after Obama went into office, Department of Human Services was asked to stop. They had a list going. They had they were investigating terrorists in America. They had a hit list going of where and trying to keep up with people that could be known terrorists. Immediately, they were ordered to stop.
By the way, Ron,
I'm not, I don't want to
the
argue.
9/11 people, over about half of those people were here on overstay of their visas, correct?
Sure.
Deportation of visa overstayers has fallen 80% on Obama's watch. Since he took office, he has dropped 80% reduction in the deportations of people overstaying their
So
visas.
you go.
No, here's
I
my
want you to
point.
simply ask a question. Should there be people?
You're missing my point. We
agree with
we
your
know.
points.
No, wait a minute. Here's my point. We can identify that overstayers of visas were at least half of the 9/11 terrorists. So why would an administration that you're asking me to trust on some kind of new gun control scheme, when they reduce the deportations of illegal people who we know half of them previously have ended up killing our citizens, why would I trust them with my gun rights?
Answer this question. If you and I could sit down here and agree on a list of people who could blow me
We
up.
have a list already.
Okay. Should they be able to walk into a gun store today and buy
They
a gun?
can't.
No.
They can't.
That's already the
We're
law.
all, we're
They
all
can't.
in agreement.
Not.
They can.
You keep saying that,
What
and
are-
it's
now,
just
wait a
not
minute.
true.
If you've been convicted of a crime, can you buy a gun?
No.
If you have a
Not in a gun store.
Okay.
not in a gun store. I mean, if you're going to talk about
Not if you're
legality,
going to follow the if
if
the
you're
seller
going to
is
be a
going to go through the
law-abiding
process-
person.
A gun show
All right,
you can go buy
so
'em.
if you're a convicted terrorist, can you buy a gun? If you're a non-citizen, can you buy a gun? The
Should
only
be a-
people that can buy a gun are people who have no blemishes on their record if the system works. In this case, political correctness didn't allow the FBI to flag this guy. And so our point is, fix that problem before you impact law-abiding
Ron,
citizens.
Before you get started, do you think this guy had blemishes on his record?
I think so, but I don't.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
He does. He
I'm
did.
a
He had lot-
retired cable television guy in Cleveland, Tennessee. I do not know what the Secret Service knows, what the FBI knows. They may investigate him. Investigating you does not mean that you're a
They
criminal.
investigated him for over 10 months.
But did
3 different times.
Did they prosecute
He
him for
traveled to
anything?
Saudi Arabia twice. He has connections to a radical imam. His father
Yes.
openly supports the Taliban. Damn, Ron, how much more would this guy have to do?
I agree with you.
Well, then why do you
But-
expect me
You
to
agreed with
submit
him. Why are we talking
myself
about it?
to a bunch of gun control zealots who won't fix an actual obvious
Wait a
problem?
minute, zealous.
Yes,
all
they're
I'm saying-
zealots.
all I've asked you for is
I
if
didn't
they're
call
a
you
criminal.
that. I said you're asking me to submit
If they're
to
a
a bunch.
criminal,
You're-
so we should have
problem-
some gun control.
See,
We
John,
have some gun control.
Not
We
much.
have gun control.
the problem is, John, your
Yeah.
view is we haven't been doing something well, so we should do nothing. That seems to be your
Yes, you're absolutely right. I don't want more things we don't do well. You're
Hey,
right.
the
I'm
re-
against doing
Well,
things poorly.
Hey, do you-
I'm
well, let me
convicted,
ask you-
folks.
let me
I'm
ask you
against doing
what
things
if
poorly.
they get it right 98% of the
Hey,
time?
Well,
is that poor?
I tell you what, vote for the Democrats because
Should-
they
wait,
will advocate
shouldn't-
doing more
no,
things
Shouldn't
poorly.
we be looking for a way to deal with the 2% instead of getting rid of the part that worked 98% of the time?
Hey guys, it's time to take our morning break.
me
We'll be
what-
back here in a few minutes.
Tell me what works.
Well, most of our planes aren't getting hijacked now, are they? I'd say it's working generally.
We put in a lot of regulations on airplanes after 9/11,
There's
did
a
we?
little problem here with that, too. The Second Amendment is a constitutional right.
You're absolutely
Flying on
right.
a plane is not a constitutional right.
It is a
No,
constitutional
it's
right.
not, Franklin.
It-
It's
no,
not.
no,
It's a
no.
numerated.
I'm agreeing with you, John.
Well, then there's a difference in regulating those things.
That's right, but it doesn't mean no regulation at all.
We have all kinds. There are tens of thousands of gun laws on the books.
We'll be right back here on Backfire.
Oh, are we still on the air?
Check into cash. Need a little extra cash right away? Who doesn't? Turn your car into cash at Check into Cash.
Get up to $4,000 with your car title only from Check into Cash. You get more cash with a Check into Cash title line of credit.
Turn your car into cash today at Check into Cash. Visit checkintocash.com for the store near you.
$4,000 title line of credit maximum based on value of vehicle and ability to repay. Subject to credit approval. See store for details.
Guns, guns, and more guns. That's right, folks. U.S. Money Shops has just received a large shipment of pre-owned Glock 22s, 23s, and the awesome Beretta 8040D Cougar. These guns are law enforcement trade-ins that start at just $379.99 while supplies last. At U.S. Money Shops, there's no shortage of guns, so if you're looking for a great deal on a newer pre-owned gun, then check us out first.
Buy yourself a gun today, the better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Visit usmoneyshops.com for the location nearest you.
Why would you put up with a heating and cooling system that cycles on and off when you can have quiet, true comfort variable speed by Train? It runs at low speeds with continuous little adjustments to keep your home comfortable and quiet. It's always been hard to stop a train. Now, it's hard to hear one.
When you want an unconventionally efficient heating and air unit that keeps your home right in the comfort zone, day in and day out, nothing will do but a Train. To get the best Train service, call your local Train comfort specialist. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. Keeping you comfortable is Mechanical Systems' only business, and they've been providing high-quality service and installation for more than 30 years. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. That's 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a train.
After 135 years, Hardwick Clothes, America's oldest since 1880, has delivered on our commitment to produce the finest navy blazer in America. This limited edition blazer was announced as the style winner in Garden and Guns Made in the South Awards. Crafted in Cleveland, Tennessee, we use premium Italian wool from Vitale Barberis, custom Bimberg lining, and signature gold buttons. It's available through the finest men's stores or at hardwick.com.
You wouldn't have your sex change, would you? Something wrong with you?
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Probably pretty...
We're back, guys.
Okay.
All right, we're back. We still been talking.
We're talking about what might have changed that. I want to say something, and feel free to call me up and fuss at me if you're bothered by this.
Give us your number.
I was listening to one of the news reports, and they had a survivor on, and he was talking about how apparently most of them had a hard time figuring out what was happening. They thought it was part of the music, and then they figured out it was gunfire. So he drops to the floor, and he wants to get his friend out, and they see a side kitchen exit, and they see people rushing out it. So they rush out the kitchen exit. When they get out there, it's a small, narrow alleyway. And now this is his own story on the news. He said there was a small door at the end, and everybody was crowded up, and they were pushing to try and get out. And I heard the shooting, and it sounded like the shooter was coming closer. So we went over and shut the door and held the door shut. Now, folks, when I heard that, the first thought that went through my head was, well, was anybody else trying to get out? And so Megan Kelly asked the guy, said, well, was anybody? Well, yeah, there were people banging on the other side of the door. Now, he paused for a long time when she asked that because it was clear he was starting to realize what he had said. Folks, that's a selfish bastard that got out and then locked a bunch of other people in. And then he had the gall to say, people are calling me a hero. Don't call me a hero. Well, hell no, you're not a hero. You shut the door on people.
I don't know. Figure out why nobody just attacked this guy. I mean,
it's hard to rush a guy with a gun.
Well,
I agree.
I understand it's hard to rush a guy with a gun, but
well, not only that,
he couldn't be shooting in all directions at the same time.
Well, you have this loud club with people jam-packed inside of it, music blaring. It would take a lot to figure out what's happening quickly, And by the time that happens,
Well,
you don't know
bullets
what's
tend to
happening.
quicken your judgment pretty fast.
Well, if you
Why
notice-
did President Obama get on the air yesterday and blast Donald Trump? I mean, what?
Because this,
I mean, he was madder
the fact
at
of the
Trump
matter. Now,
than he
Franklin's
was-
going to have a
Because Donald
coronary.
Trump got on the air yesterday and somehow tried to take credit.
No, what
Yeah,
he got
that's
mad
exactly
about is
what he
because
did.
Donald Trump said, look, there's something wrong when this president, with this kind of attack, cannot still say Islamic terrorism.
Actually, what Donald Trump got on the news and did was suggest that the president was somehow supporting ISIS.
No, he didn't
Yes, he
suggest that
did.
at all. What he suggested was
Yes, he
it's
did.
hard to explain. And that's
president-
all he said was you
No,
can't
that's
explain.
not all he
By
said.
the way, Franklin,
Is it hard to
as
explain?
much as you hate to
No.
hear it, George W. Bush kept us safe the entire time after 9/11. We have had multiple attacks on U.S. soil under this presidency. That will be one of his
How many attacks
legacies.
on U.S. soil have we had by people who came from other countries?
I don't care, Franklin.
No,
Dead
here's
is
the
dead.
difference.
Okay, all you people down in Orlando feel good that he was a U.S. citizen who killed you in the name of ISIS.
How about Chattanooga?
U.S. citizen.
ISIS.
U.S. citizen.
ISIS.
U.S. citizen.
Yes, but it's an ISIS terrorist. By the way, in France...
What do you mean George W. Bush kept us safe?
We didn't have any
Last
attacks
time I
on U.S.
checked,
soil.
3,000 people died when those towers
After
came down.
9/11, you're right. I
Well,
said
who was
that.
president then?
Well, he was.
Where'd
And-
they come from?
Well, they came from Osama bin Laden's planning because
Okay.
the previous president, on the 3 occasions that he had to take him into custody, didn't do it.
Okay.
But by the way, there was a French police commander and his wife who were murdered, and the guy did exactly, this happened this week, exactly like Orlando. He murdered the commander. He took the wife and a secretary and the commander's child hostage, held them hostage. When they finally stormed the residence, he had killed the mother, but in the process, he called them and swore allegiance almost word for word the same way the Orlando shooter did. But by all means, our president can't connect any of this to ISIS.
What is Obama's terrorist strategy right now?
Terrorist strategy.
What's the
Yeah,
strategy
what's
for
the
fighting ISIS?
What's the strategy for these problems
Well,
in America?
what he's attempting to do right now is to get ISIS pinned down in Syria and Libya and Iraq.
So, like before with Bush, when we were doing 14,000 air sorties a day, we're doing 8 now. That's
Okay.
pinning them down. 14,000
Yeah, they
to
are
8.
pretty much pinned down.
14,000 to 8. That's pinning them down.
He can't even call them. He can't even talk about it, Franklin.
Why wouldn't he have said Islamic terrorism after this? When the
Because
guy avowed it.
he gave a wonderful answer
Did
to
he?
that yesterday.
What was it?
No, he
What
said
was his
he
wonderful
said
answer?
I'm challenging my opponents who keep saying this to tell me one single concrete improvement that will come out of me using those words.
Well, let me give it to you this way.
Tell
Franklin.
me, tell
All
me
right,
how
all right,
many
fine,
terrorists
fine.
will die. Tell me how many terrorist attacks will be stopped.
Franklin, I'll tell
me
you.
what that
I'll
is.
explain exactly the rationale for this. Okay, I send people all the time to the oral surgeon for a biopsy. So the oral surgeon looks at a lesion on in your mouth, and he sends you to the pathologist, and the pathologist does a biopsy, and then he sends a report back, and in the report, the pathologist says, "This is a really bad disease. I'm not going to name the disease, but you need to come up with a strategy to combat this disease and cure it." How happy as a patient are you going to be with that report from the pathologist?
Well, John, the disease
You
is
can't
people
fix
who hate
something
America.
if you don't recognize what it is. He won't call it by its name. And how do you devise a strategy when you don't even name what the problem is?
Let me inject something for Steve here, and I'm not defending anybody. But once again, I'm an old retired guy from cable television. I have no idea what the CIA is doing right now.
Well, I'm probably worried they'll be prosecuted for anything they do.
I doubt that. But we don't know if they're there, who they killed last week.
What about
what
the
we know, what we actually know is that this
How about the
president's
Rose
killed
Garden?
more
What about the
terrorists
Rose
than any
Garden?
man in history.
What about the Rose Garden, Franklin?
The Rose Garden.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
I
when
don't
he
think it's
brought
been
our own
attacked.
Guy in, so
Yeah.
his parents in and bragged on him after
When he brought the parents of this nut that led all these
that betrayed us.
betrayed us and made a big deal out of it, like he's some kind of a hero or something.
He sent a message to American personnel that nobody's going to get left behind. That's right.
You know what, Franklin? We used to leave traitors behind because
No,
we
we
shot
didn't.
them on the battlefield.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we did. We shot them.
What What?
Not in your lifetime, John.
No, back when we were winning wars.
Hey,
You're right.
What's going on with him, by the way, right now? How long does the investigation take? How long does the trial take?
Investigation's over.
Okay.
There's a trial scheduled.
Okay. All right. So there's a trial schedule. You know, in military law, you just lined them up and shot
It is
them.
in the military. No, you don't line them up and shot them. You have
Well,
to
they
go
used
through
to
the
do it.
court-martial, don't you?
Well, on the
Didn't take long
battlefield,
to
they shot
court-martial.
him.
In military law, you're guilty until proven innocent.
Well, okay.
No, that's
Well,
the
you
truth.
are.
Okay. What is your point? This is
Because
being
this
handled under
president
the
has
Uniform
interjected
Code of
himself
Military
into-
Justice.
This
It's not being
president
handled by
interjected
civilian
himself into the
prosecutors.
process and is protecting this guy. Franklin, what message does it send when, even if there was just a question about whether he betrayed his fellow soldiers, to bring his parents and have a honorable? A matter of fact, you had one of his secretaries call the guy's service honorable.
I think
Actually
Trump-
gave a formal statement, said he served honorably.
I think Trump's right. I think there's something weird about this president.
It's hard to explain.
There is something weird about it.
Yeah, there's something.
By the way,
there's something weird about a
Bernie
president who's
Sanders
actually thinking about the long-term ramifications
he's
of
an
what we do,
American.
as opposed
Well,
to.
he's been in office for
And
8
that's
years.
exactly
and
what y'all been
ISIS has
doing since
grown.
he got
He's
elected.
been in office for 8
Rick,
years.
that
ISIS
question.
was birthed and has grown under his watch.
No, it was not birthed.
It was
Terry.
birthed
It was
under his
birthed
watch.
when we decided to send the Middle East into turmoil. And who did that?
You're right. Bush went in, and then
Okay.
your guy gave it
And
all
it was
up
the
and handed
biggest
it back
foreign
to him.
policy
Gave
blunder
it
in
all
American
up and
history.
handed it back to him.
The biggest
Gave
foreign
it all
policy
up.
blunder.
Well, guess what, Franklin? We make lots
Oh, wait,
of mistakes.
wait. Which president made the deal for us to get out?
By the
Which
way,
one was it?
Which president
Which
said-
one was it? It was Bush.
No, your vice president was in charge of negotiating the status of forces agreement, which he
That
didn't
was-
do. Which he didn't do.
The deal to get out by that
It wasn't to
deadline
get
was
out
made
completely.
by Bush.
You're wrong. He
What
wasn't. He
president-
didn't advocate getting out completely, Franklin. It's your guy that decided to pull all the troops out. By the way,
that's right,
which
John.
president said
Unless they agreed that our soldiers would be free from prosecution, we would not
Franklin,
stay.
Which
That's
president
exactly
set
right.
the U.S. policy to remove Saddam Hussein from office by force?
Originally, it was established by Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton set that policy. Who voted
Which
for it?
president put them?
Ted Kennedy. All of them. Biden voted for it.
Which
all of them.
which president installed Saddam Hussein?
Well, actually, he was there before Bush came.
Which one installed? Which president installed him?
I think he went in during Reagan's time.
No, he went in during Nixon's time.
Okay.
But who lost the Vietnam War? Which
We
president?
The media did.
No, Nixon.
No, we did.
Well,
The
wait a minute.
American
You can't blame one president without blaming the other.
Look,
Whoever the seating
Franklin,
president
that's
is.
exactly
the,
right.
The communist Vietnamese said that the way they won the war was because of the American media.
Oh yeah, but
The
here,
Tet
but
offensive,
see,
Ron,
but we
was the
sk-
Tet offensive a military victory or a failure for us?
It was a foreign. It was a media failure. Sure.
It was an
But
overwhelming.
guess what, John?
Did we
military
lose the
victory.
war?
But guess what, John?
Overwhelming military victory.
But guess what? When we go in and try to overthrow people who were democratically elected,
Fine, I don't.
maybe we made a
You
big
know what,
mistake.
Franklin, maybe, but that doesn't mean you mismanaged the after effects. And this president mismanaged it, led to the creation of ISIS, and has now allowed it to grow on his watch. This is his one of his legacies is ISIS.
And you have no strategy for how you would deal with the long-term effect of what you argue we should do.
I say
I've
we
got
kill
one.
a whole bunch of them until they don't want to be
We've
killed anymore.
killed more.
No,
We've
you have blown
hundreds
up
of
with
thousands
No.
of them have been killed.
No, they haven't. Franklin, that's ridiculous. This president has drone striked hundreds of them, and that's it.
I have a question, Franklin. The wife of this shooter, what's going to happen with her now? What do you
Well,
think
if
legally
it's
is going to happen?
determined that she actually did know he was planning to do this, that's being reported in some sources, then she's subject to being prosecuted for that.
So if she rode him around and they talked about
if that
it,
happened, it's possible. Yeah.
so
I don't know that it has, because there's all kinds of stuff that came out this morning and last night that's putting a whole different slant on this.
do you think Trump made a comment that most of the Muslims are not reporting the other Muslims? Is that
I suspect that huge amounts of the intelligence we have on folks are actually coming from other Muslims.
well?
That
Then
would
we
be my
had
guess.
intelligence.
That would
on
be
this-
my guess.
We had intelligence on this shooter. What happened to it?
We had intelligence 3 years ago that
Okay.
he made some trips that were worthy of suspicion, and that he made a few comments on some online postings.
And
That's
then,
what we have.
and then he went and
Investigated
bought.
him
Yes.
10 months.
Then he
Yes, and then
then he
and
went
then
and bought
and then
guns
according
legally.
to what I've read, as is typically the case in this, because we can't follow them around every other country they go to, we put in inquiries to the intelligence agencies in these other countries, Saudi Arabia in this case, and they were unable to determine that there was a connection.
Now, that would be the Muslim government of Saudi Arabia.
Well, now how are you going to do it, John?
Well, frankly, my point
mean,
is
they're
not.
there.
My point is maybe that should have been taken with a grain of salt. Maybe someone with a little common
Maybe
sense.
it was.
By the way, don't you think notifying the local police department in Florida might have been a good thing to say, hey, maybe you just want to at least keep your eye on this guy?
Possibly.
What about
Because
the
they
gun-
didn't. They
what-
didn't notify
John,
the San
you
Bernardino
and I
people.
are in-
They didn't notify the Boston bomber people.
You and I are in agreement.
That this administration incompetently handled this.
What about Chattanooga? You know, in the black community down there, they do not report. They know who killed
That's a
people
problem,
and
too.
shot people.
You're right.
You go to some small community here in Cleveland that's tight knit, they won't tell on each other either.
But the difference is,
so-
Ron, there's
but the-
over 1 billion Muslims in the world.
That's
There's,
not every
there's
Muslim.
25 people in McDonald who might keep a secret. There's 1 billion Muslims. By the way, there was an imam 2 months ago that went to Orlando and preached death for gays. This is his actual quote. Look, death is the sentence. We know there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Death is the sentence. Out of compassion, let's get rid of them now. By the way, a poll in Great Britain shows that over half of British Muslims believe homosexuality should be illegal. Now, Hillary had the good sense to slam Arab regimes around the world that have abetted these criminals. She said it's long past time for the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, and the Qataris to stop their citizens from funding extremist organizations. By the way, the Clinton Foundation took $25 million from Saudi Arabia, $5 million from Qatar, and
Where'd that money
$5
go?
to $10 million from Kuwait.
Where'd that money
But I'm
go?
sure the
Where'd
Clinton
that money go,
My
John?
point is,
To her daughter?
No,
she
where did it go?
criticized
I'm going to give
three
you an answer
nations.
to her daughter.
3 nations for funding extremists that she has taken tens of millions of dollars from.
So is
And she wants to be the president.
every Muslim bad?
No.
You're sitting here saying Muslims,
I'm saying
Muslims,
that you got to
Muslims.
watch all of them. Yeah, right now,
All of
yes.
them.
Yes,
All of them.
absolutely.
So you're now let's be clear about this because we've had some discussions about this. So you're now saying the government should target communities based upon their beliefs.
Well, let's put it this way.
no, just
No.
answer the question.
Yeah, I think they should be watching most of the.
But let's impeach the IRS.
I think that they should.
Well, wait a minute,
right
Franklin.
now, the
No, I'm
Muslim
just
money-
saying. You see no
New
contradiction
York
in this
City
at all.
has the most successful counterterrorism program in place until this new socialists dismantled it. And what they did was, just like Ron talked about communities here, if you have a high crime community, you put more police in that community. If you know that Muslims on average at least contribute a higher number of the terrorists to our terrorist incident, then you need to watch that
Let
community
me
hard.
ask the question now. You want Muslims to tell on other Muslims. I do too.
Mm-hmm.
I want blacks to tell on blacks and the good old boys to tell on the good old boys. I want them all to do that. But we're sitting here and we don't. These Muslims here, you talk about we should watch every Muslim. Do you think that they feel confident
I don't
talking
care.
to the police?
I don't care. They're
Well,
killing us, and they're advocating
well,
killing us.
the-
Their leaders are advocating killing us, Ron.
That's the problem.
I want to go
Do you
after.
believe in the gang initiative in Chattanooga?
Do what?
Do you believe in the gang
No.
initiative?
No.
So you shouldn't watch the gang stricter.
I would do something totally different. I would find the leader of the gang, and every time he drives down the street, he'd go to jail for something.
Well, gee, that
I
sounds
would
a lot
harass
like
him.
what I'm talking about with the Muslims, and you're criticizing it.
But not all Muslims, not every
How
black
do you-
in Chattanooga.
Well, I didn't say all Muslims. I said you have to watch the imams. You have to watch.
You're exactly right.
You have to watch the
But
community.
how do you convince a Muslim living in Cleveland or
Well, I
Chattanooga?
can tell you one way you convince them. When the actions of their fanatics impact their lifestyle, then they'll make a change.
They'll start talking.
When they start seeing,
Should we
gosh,
round them
these
all up?
guys are screwing us up. They're screwing this good deal in America that we have up. Then they might start coming forward and saying, "I'm tired of that guy. I'm tired of that guy causing trouble for me."
Doing what we're doing now.
I
is
agree.
Is not a way to
Not
get that
working.
fixed. It's not working.
Well, like I say, if you want to get people on your side, you have to entice those other Muslims, those other blacks, those other good old boys that it's okay to talk to the police, that the government's got coming to get me. And do you think we ought to round up every Muslim in the United States and put them in a camp?
I said we need to watch them. We're not surveilling them,
Would-
Ron,
would- would you-
because of
would-
political
would you
correctness.
You do
investigate-
not know if we're surveilling people
Absolutely
or
we
not.
know. This
No,
guy-
you do not. You're a dentist in Bradley County. I'm a cable guy in Bradley County. I do not know what.
All right,
the
let me
sick-
ask you a question. With our limited, judgment,
Yes.
with just what you know about this guy, that he traveled to Saudi Arabia, that he posted comments, that all of his coworkers said he was a danger and a hazard, do you think you could make the good judgment to say, gosh, that's a guy we ought to be watching?
With that limited piece of paper in your hand, I agree with you 100%. I do
I'm
not
not
know.
an expert, and we were able to figure
but,
that out.
But the FBI, we don't know what
They
the
didn't
FBI
even
knows.
notify the local police,
all right.
Ron.
Well, they may not know there's a problem.
Ron,
Yes.
the governor of Florida called Washington and asked for a watch list for people in Florida. The Obama administration refused to give it to him.
And
Now
by
then,
the way,
what is wrong?
By
What's
the way,
wrong with that?
Donald Trump has called the governor of Florida and offered condolences. President George W. Bush has called the governor of Florida and offered any help and condolences. Our president, who could manage to call a thug who attacked a police officer and got shot, couldn't call the governor of the state of Florida where the largest post 9/11 attack has happened. Couldn't be bothered to call him.
Still hasn't done it.
But he's coming down to speak
But
at
he
the
didn't
ceremony
call the
there.
sitting
What's he gonna
governor.
talk about? What's he
Why
gonna
did
talk
he
about,
get
Franklin?
shot?
Why would he not, Franklin? Why would he not?
What's he gonna
What
talk
a,
about?
what a crock.
Why not?
What a
Tell
crock.
me why not.
Why does the governor
But why
need a
not?
call?
Tell me why not.
Probably because he thinks the governor has opposed most of the policies that could have helped
what?
stop
In
them.
other words,
So
divide
what?
America, don't unify.
So what?
That's true on
He's
both
the
sides of the
president of
aisle.
all the people.
That's
So what?
true on both sides of the aisle, is it not?
The governor is the governor of the people of Florida. The governor reached out to him.
And they refused to give him the list. He
Are
actually,
you, wait a minute.
I can't
Which
wait for
which
this
thing are we
president to get
talking
out of
about?
office.
well, the governor
Well, I'm
of
glad
Florida,
you can't,
at the
'cause-
point where they were talking about resettling refugees, he said, can we have a list of who you're going to resettle in the state of Florida? The federal government refused to give him the list. Now, tell me, Ron, does that sound like you're watching these people very well?
Still don't know.
By
we
the
don't.
way,
we
under
don't.
Obama's watch, 831,000 green cards were given to migrants, while only 322 Muslim migrants, while only 322,000 from EU countries. So we let almost 3 times the number of Muslim migrants into the country with green cards than we let European migrants.
There's something wrong with this,
But
President.
Well,
But
not
your-
that
your
big
argument is
because
that
there are
we
fewer
should have-
migrants from the EU countries.
Frankly,
I mean,
we
they
used
have
to actually
strong
look at our immigration and say, is this person a good fit for America? We don't do that anymore.
No, we did
Yes,
not.
we did. You might want to look up the immigration laws. We
There
actually
was a time before the turn of the century where we had
1960,
quotas on people.
You're wrong.
You can only have so many
Franklin,
Irish, so
look
many
it up.
Chinese.
Look it up. 1960s. It was in the 1960s that we dropped all that. We actually had, and it wasn't a quota only so many. It was a quota that we want Irish, we want German, we want English. We actually picked and chose who we let into this country.
All right. We've had an interesting conversation, to say at least. I'm going to change the subject.
Sure.
Franklin, you came in this morning, you were talking about this opiate addiction. Tennessee's up to get $24 million from the federal government to try to start opening up clinics and so forth. Now, tell us, that's for heroin addiction and what else?
Oxycodone, other opiate-based prescription drugs primarily, although heroin falls into that category too.
And how many clinics do we
There
have
are
for that?
12 clinics in the state of Tennessee. There are 67 in the state of Georgia, 24 in the state of Alabama. Georgia has a piece of legislation pending right now to prevent more clinics from opening up in Georgia.
Prevent more clinics.
Because so many people are coming from Alabama and Tennessee to them.
Kind of like TennCare was, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Of course, people came to Tennessee for TennCare.
Yeah. People from
Yeah.
California coming.
Sure.
Yeah.
You had people from California moving here. Sure.
But and Alabama and Tennessee has a very similar population level. Is that?
I guess, but
Yeah,
Alabama
I believe it
had twice as many clinics as we do.
Yes.
Well,
Why do you think that is?
Now you can, you know, obviously there were problems that led to the development of this abuse issue, which is a nationwide issue right now, and it's something that's got to be addressed. I've seen some fascinating interviews with some medical professionals who basically said we're all guilty. The manufacturers of the drugs, the doctors, the regulators, all missed the warning sign. Well, sure, absolutely. All missed the boat on this and let this get out of hand. But it's now at a crisis level, and it's something that, you can talk about just the morality of it if you want to, but the fact is it's now having a significant impact on productivity, economic issues, and it's something that deserves a lot more attention.
Well, I agree with you, but how would that dovetail in with a state like Colorado actually legalizing more drugs that cause laziness and non-productivity?
Well, okay.
That was an argument that a lot of
I think the argument
what
for
about
there
watching
is
the
that there
border and let's stop it there.
Well, we've been trying to do
Actually,
that for.
This problem with the opioids, though,
is homegrown.
Is much more so.
This is
stolen
prescription drugs
prescriptions
for the most
and
part.
things like that.
Not even stolen.
Yes.
Well, you've got doctors. You've got doctors that are prescribing.
The manufacturers of oxycodone, in particular, touted that drug as not addictive when it happened. Totally false. In fact, it's horribly addictive.
And the problem with you might mention the problem with some
tolerances.
of these clinics is that not all of the clinics have actually been above board trying to help people get off. They've actually been clinics that have been selling the drugs under the guise of
per capita, Tennessee leads the nation in opioid prescriptions. Scary fact, but it's
So
true.
the doctors are writing too many.
Too many.
Too many of those.
But now there's a legal component to this too.
Sure.
That if you don't, it's very hard to prove that someone's not actually hurting. So a lot of these doctors are afraid of being sued because you didn't treat my pain.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll give you a quick story. My mom, when she fell, this before she fell, she had back problems, and chronic back problems.
Sure.
And I ended up having to take her to a pain management specialist, and they started writing prescriptions. And of course, she's old, and she was in dire pain, just dire pain. Spent times in the hospital with it. Anyway, he kept writing more prescriptions. Make a long story short, the help was still in the medicine. That's just amazing to me. We had to hire people to stay with her.
But there are doctors that will tell you stories of a mother bringing a small child to the doctor and trying to get codeine cough syrup that the mother is then drinking.
Sure. There's it's highly habit forming.
And there's a lot of Oxycontin being sold on the street also.
Yeah.
That's true.
They get it legally, then they go sell it for.
And in many places in the country now, prescription Oxycontin is actually more expensive than heroin.
Well, and you've got the kids selling their ADHD medicine because it's effectively speed.
In fact, and contrary to what you might think, this prescription drug thing is most prevalent with middle-class white kids.
Right. That's
Do
true.
you think medical marijuana is an alternative?
Look, I think any drug under the care of a physician that's used to treat a medical malady is fine. The problem
I'm not a marijuana fan. Let me
I'm
just
not,
get that real straight.
Here's my point. There are ways to get the ingredient out of marijuana without legalizing smoking marijuana.
Cannabis oil.
Yes, you can treat them. So for me, a lot of that is a red herring. It is a BS line from the people that just want legalized marijuana.
Yes, I agree.
It's a foot in the door.
Sure. Of course. But I think all drugs, I'll say, is any drug you put in your body is a poison of some type.
true.
It's not natural.
That's true.
So any drug we take is that. And if you have one that changes who you are, like the Oxycontin.
Well, like marijuana changes who you are.
I can honestly admit I never had to fight anybody that was smoked a joint.
Well, that's true.
If they were drunk, I had to fight
But they
them.
also weren't producing anything.
Oh, the
You know,
people
Colorado's
working.
already seen a huge spike in their welfare services, in their unemployment, and you know they're seeing an impact from the legalized marijuana already.
You know, companies.
California saw that.
Still do drug testing and can refuse
yeah.
to hire those people.
I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to have to check this. But you just tell me that the unemployment rate in Colorado has gone up since they passed
No,
it?
no. What I'm saying is they are already having problems with the idleness. I'll have to look at it. There were several stories a few weeks ago about they're seeing an impact on their social services and things like that because people are coming there, no job, they don't want to work, they want to sit around and smoke pot all the time.
And draw.
That's I'll have to look it up, Franklin. So I didn't say that.
I'd say they're getting unemployed.
By the way, there is one really good piece of news. An appeals court has overturned the Chris Kyle lawsuit Jesse Ventura brought.
Isn't that great?
So they have reversed that, taken those damages away, and remanded part of that back for retrial.
Ooh, I bet the wrestler's mad.
Well, that's a victory for an American hero.
All right, folks, we're out of time. We've got to go. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Ron.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop FM.